Get ready, folks. It's time to light the campfire.
And with that, we have some audio. And indeed, that's a little bit of audio for us all. We should be able to hear things right about now. And some of you will notice that this voice has heralded perhaps a slight downgrade in host quality for the evening. I can apologize, folks, but hey, what more could I do? It's a Mizpah. Stepping in for the sadly sick Pseudo. Get well soon, Pseudo. We wish you well. But of course, we're not alone. We have our extra special guest for the evening's entertainment. It is Osun. Say hello, Osun.
Hey, what's up, guys? How's my makeup? Looking good?
Just a little bit more powder there, please, Osun. You're shining, I do believe. But we have the hostesses with the mostesses. Finally, he's put some clothes on for those who are watching the chat. It's Screenager.
Hello.
And of course, we have your favorite Viking. Say hello, Blankspace.
What's going on, folks? You may see a little Viking princess in the background. I messed up my time, so I picked her up early, so she might make a special guest appearance.
Extra special guest Viking princess. So sorry if we steal your spotlight, Osun. But with that, we're here to do the show. Hello to all of those who are here. We see a lot of familiar names that I've seen before was lurking on the periphery. We have Kinaut84, we have Ginger Peony, we have Drusserblood, we have Mad Murloc, we have Kaisera, we have Ariel, and we have many others. But that's enough to get us going. It's time to kick things off with a little bit of Campfire. And for those of you who are familiar with the show and the segments, we usually start with pretty much the same thing. Time for some more information. And with that, we can introduce Osun. Osun, why not say hello, tell people a little bit about your good self, and then we shall probe you.
Wow, you're going to do what to me? My name's Dan. You can find Osun online. I'm in a gaming community called Keepers of the Dark Side. And we play all sorts of games, MMOs, FPS games, anything we get our hands on, really. 31, I've been gaming since 96. Started off with Quake 1 and found Ultima in 99, I think, and since then I've been playing tons of MMOs.
All good stuff. What games are you guys and girls involved in right now?
At the moment, there's not really much going on. We're waiting for Elder Scrolls, so just 3 weeks for that. We've got the beta weekend coming up. Looking at WildStar, really looking forward to. I found there. Looking forward to Star Citizen as well. But I play all sorts of stuff, loads of Steam games.
Gotta have some deep pockets for that.
Yeah, you've got to. We should. I don't know if I dare really phrase this or not, but what exactly do you have in your hangar, Osun, if you're prepping for Star Citizen?
I've only got the one ship. We have people with enough ships to support the whole community, to be honest. I haven't gone overboard with that.
Excellent. And Blank, are we keeping you up there? Has it been a busy day?
No, I heard something about Elder Scrolls, and suddenly I was attacked by this huge urge to yawn and take a nap. I just get over. It was overwhelming. It passed,
It was clearly overexcitement, and you overexerted yourself.
I must have.
Either that or they've got a really powerful debuff system, one or the other. Okay. Let's, with that, kick into our the beginnings of a little bit of normality, if you can call it normality here. So, Osun, we have a section, you've probably seen it before, where you need to tell us 3 things. Now, those 3 things are made up of a random voice laughing loudly in the background that you may be able to hear, that in a minute I'm going to go and hit with a large piece of wood. But before I do that, Osun,
you have to just deal with this, mate. This is the campfire. You have to deal with it.
This is the campfire. We have a large, loud laughing person intruding right now, but hey, thankfully you can't see them. Osun, 3 things, 2 truths, 1 lie. Do not tell us which is which. Allow us to speculate, pontificate, and work it out. And I'll be coming to you 2 for your opinions in a moment. So, Osun, any order you like. The floor is yours.
I love blues music. I'm an avid collector of Nazi war memorabilia. I might be fond of Star Wars as well. Yeah. There you go.
So I now have an image of Osun sitting in a Star Wars cantina, listening to blues.
Having Penny Arrabbiata.
Something like that. Fondly investigating his war memorabilia. Blank, I don't know. Which one of those do you think it is? We obviously don't know.
At just the first, judging the book by its cover, I really want to swing for the fences and say I'm 90% sure the jazz is probably real. That's just me. What do you think, Screen?
I don't know anyone who could still love Star Wars after SWTOR.
You have a point there, I fear. And I'm afraid I'm possibly going to be going in the direction of Screen there, but we don't know. So there we go. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a starter for 10, feed you with a question, Osun, and then let these two attack you with the questions of their own. And along the way, you'll get to tell us a fair bit more about yourselves and how you put things together on KDS. So you're running around. You're involved in a gaming community. I'll let you define that a little better later on. You make decisions. Things happen. Life happens. Large trucks drive from left to right, and Viking princesses invade.
Small children run past.
So, with hindsight being a fantastical thing, tell us a decision you've made in the past that you felt was good at the time, but perhaps in hindsight you've gone, oh, not so much.
Not appearing on this show.
Someone releasing SW Tour, for example.
I guess really talking about communities and such is your thing here. So I think the thing is, because we have so many people, we changed our structure recently. We decided, to look for other people in the community to take a prominent role, to help lead stuff. And we like giving people chances. And let's just say that people being how they are, it doesn't always work out, and sometimes we're not quick enough to jump on that, and it can really run through the community if you haven't got the right person there. So I would say with hindsight, even with hindsight, it's really difficult to judge, and I think that's still something that's going to continue. I don't think there's a huge amount that you can do. If someone shows interest, we're going to give them a chance, but sometimes it doesn't always work out. That's happened a few times. I think unfortunately it's going to keep happening, especially when you've got quite a large community. We've got a couple of hundred active, so.
Yeah. So here's a question for Blank, because obviously Blank, you're going to be familiar with all things military structure, more so than I. Military, as I understand things, you prove your worth, you do stuff, you achieve stuff, you move up through the ranks based on what you've actually done. How much slack or rope can you give someone in that structure to get something right? And then how can you react to it? Because as I understand Osun, everything you do is based on this military hierarchy. Yeah,
exactly. There's only 4 people at the top now, but we generally will promote people and officers into the game that we have. So it's really set ahead of time what we're going to do, how we're going to do it.
So what's your take on the military structure and giving people room to grow and do stuff after proving themselves, and how should you react in that structure if they don't? Let's compare the military take to how it works for Osun.
Well, in a military structure, there's a couple different variables, but they all are based on achieving. So to get promoted, you don't need just a class. You need to also have a good PT score. You have to have time in grade. Time in grade means that you've been a private long enough. Sometimes those are waiverable for certain people that are exceptional, and that gets waived by higher ranks. You also have time in service. Somebody who's been here for a year isn't going to be a sergeant, automatically, no matter how high speed they are. I'm throwing out some good terminology for you. But a lot of it basically is it is an achievement system where what you put in, the time, your hard work, dependability, will fast track you. I was somebody who took 3 years to get to sergeant, which is it's very difficult to do. There are others who take it a little bit slower because that's their prerogative. It all depends on how well this translates into their gaming community, because they may use this structure, but they may not use it as an achievement base. They may do it something a little bit more aqueous. It really depends how they've ported it over. But I'm definitely interested to hear how that works.
So what's your take on that, Osun?
Yes, so like I was saying, we changed our structure. We don't have the 20-odd officers or something that we did previously. We did it so that we don't have to go through that, really, as well as other reasons. But now we have, as I said, we've got 4 people to make decisions, decide what games we're going to officially launch into, and then we allow people to choose or have the opportunity to say, oh yeah, I really want to have a go at this, I really want to lead this, or I want to be the crafting lead, or I want to be the army CO, etc. Then they put forward, how they're going to do it, and we'll review those, and yeah, basically say who's going to take charge.
And how do you react? So obviously you gave the example of hindsight of a scenario where someone's in a role, they're doing stuff, maybe it didn't work out for the best. Someone somewhere needs to deal with that, and that's usually an ugly thing to deal with. So how do you manage that scenario?
Well, I think the fundamental problem of communities is the fact that there's humans in it. So what can you do about that, really? Not a lot. I think the thing is, you just got to recognize the science ahead of time. The forum posts, the little groups that go off into different places and tend not to want to assimilate themselves, and just be quicker about pulling someone aside and saying, look, this isn't working, you need to do something like this, or you need to listen to people more. I think that is probably the thing that we've learned on in the past. That's taken longer for us to recognize, or to know when to intervene.
Okay, so it really comes back to any guild structure. It comes back to communication.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, KDS, you're running around. You've got X people. You came upon this structure. You implemented it. How did it come about? How did you get to where you are today? How and why did you choose the structure you've got? Why is it good for you?
Okay, well, we had quite a lot of members, as I said already, and you got to figure out a way of having these people and working. So we started off having officers on a platoon system. So when we launched into the game, we had 16 people under a platoon, and we had the squad systems within the platoon, and we had someone that would run the army, the whole army. Then we'd have people that run a platoon. Then we have people that run the squads. But the problem with that is that as you know now, games don't really have a huge shelf life anymore. I mean, we played, for example, the last time we had that implemented, we had that in Star Wars. We had that in Guild Wars 2. Both those games didn't, for us at least, didn't last that long. Star Wars was fun for me, man. I don't care what you say. It wasn't what I wanted it to be, but I still managed to have fun with the guys I played with. But a lot of people left, and so what you end up having is platoons or squads that failed, and then they left, not because they didn't like the game, but because they didn't have any activity. So we just decided that this isn't going to work. We don't want to have pressure on people who are officers to have to play a game they don't want to play, because it's not going to be fun. And then that's going to filter down to people in their squads. So we just decided that we're going to close that. We're going to have 4 people that make the decisions on it, and then we're going to open it up, as I said, to whoever wants to actually run the chapter. So that hopefully is going to run a bit better. We've only recently implemented it, so we've got a load of games coming out this year that will probably be able to test it.
Okay. I see from my show notes someone is about to dive in. Take it away.
So I have a couple of questions for you. You said you just did a restructuring, and you have 4 people in charge. Now, out of those 4 people, is this a council? Does everyone have a 25% vote? Is there somebody who retains the presidency? Within the military structure, you may have generals, but there's still that one person who says, we're going to war, or we're not involving ourselves in a conflict. So I was wondering about that, and how many people, if you were the president, how many people would you actually have in charge for your guys?
Okay, so we've got two guild founders, I guess, two generals, and there's another two of us who are within the high commands, as we call it, and then we'll probably involve whoever's leading the chapter in a decision. We'll put that post, we'll have a discussion on TeamSpeak, whatever, and then we'll lay out in the post for everyone else to see. That's pretty much how it runs. As simple as that.
So you have two higher command, which, and then you have two more that are generals, and then you have what I would consider, your colonels or your leaders.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Now, have you had to change this? I know you said you just went through a new change. Is there room for expansion with this? Like, to me, that sounds, if I have to make a guess, it sounds like you guys have maybe 300 to 500 members ish with that sort of a structure. Would I be right?
I think we're probably around 200. Former activity recently showed about 180 something people, logging in consistently. So I'd say you're on the higher end, probably in total.
Okay. And so right now, you guys, do you think you'd be able to grow within the structure that you have now comfortably to recruit people with just like the leaders that you have?
Yeah, I think so. As I said, if we fell back on the squad system, we're still leaving that open as a possibility. I mean, we haven't really had huge numbers since the last time. We had about 150, 60, I think, when Star Wars first launched in TeamSpeak. The first launch day. Just to give you an idea. I mean,
Yes.
we were a Star Wars guild, you know what I mean? So that was going to happen. But we're still keeping the opportunity for platoon system if we ever grow to that size again in the game.
Now, the last one I have for you, and I'll probably end up tossing this back. So you have different communities or guilds across different games. Now, how do you deal with, let's say, your WildStar guild leader having issues with PR or talking trash about the Elder Scrolls group? How do they interact and how do they play out in your organization? Is it the one with the bigger numbers? Is it the one who are the loudest? Is it the ones with the strongest arguments? How do they get their problems sent up to you? How do you deal with that sort of sibling rivalry within an organization?
It's not really. We're not expecting there to be any sort of rivalry between the games, and really hasn't been so far. I mean, no one's really trash talking. If you don't like it, you don't like it, and that's the great thing about being a community as opposed to, I guess, a guild. We're not forcing anyone to go. No one's losing out if they don't join the game.
Right.
So essentially, it is a little mini. It's not mini guilds, really, is it? I guess it could be.
Well, it can be. And we've got some level of experience in Afterlife with that as well, so it's trying not to chime in too much. But how do you guys in KDS find that you deal with things like Dom was saying, like wider community PR, and how do you structure things like say, for example, the Twitter accounts that you'll use, the wider things like community events, the things that encompass the wider community overall. So say planning to launch a new guild, for example, having a community event, having a competition, having stuff going on in the forum that manages to breach the boundaries of just one guild. How do you guys provide support for those guilds? Do you section off some of those things to a community leader or an officer above them, or do you let all of the guilds handle their own PR, or how do you guys go ahead and approach that? Because obviously we've got our point of view, and I'll maybe go into that later, but how do you guys deal with that?
Okay, yeah. I mean, we have a TeamSpeak that we use. I mean, we all sit on there. We're not necessarily always playing games, so we are also on the forums as well. I mean, we're all active on the forums. They're sectioned off into different games and future games. Again, I don't really want to call them guilds because I don't really think that we subdivide to that extreme. We're not sectioning each other off, so we don't have these 10 people that are going to be in the guild coming up to WildStar or ESO.
What do you call them internally?
We don't really. Well, we call them chapters. We're going to call them chapters. So we don't really kind of separate ourselves. You can play in two chapters if you want. If you want to split your time between, that's not an issue.
So So when you've got a larger organization with multiple chapters across it, you don't allow those chapters to section off their own PR or run their own events or things like that. They come through the higher tiers of the community, and the community. So if they want to try and push out, say for example, I'm organising an ad hoc costume brawl in World v World on Thursday against a couple of servers. I'm going to call it Quaggin Brawl because there's loads of Quaggin tonics in Guild Wars 2 right now. Now that's going to be pushed. I'm doing that as community lead for Afterlife, and I'm assisting the Guild Wars 2 guys getting that out, and I'm going to be pushing the PR for that, because what happens is our guys, they can leverage the wider community PR, so the Twitter, the Facebook, and the contacts we've got with different communities via our community team, and they don't really have to worry about running their own PR. But at the same time, you could go ahead and you could allow your guilds or chapters to be taking on those responsibilities themselves. So that's kind of the two sides of that I'm looking at. It doesn't just come to PR, it can come to other responsibilities as well. But I take it from what you're saying is you guys run, or KDS certainly run, more of a kind of the chapters, you guys play the game, and the hierarchy of KDS nearer the top of that, we'll run all of the kind of other stuff. We'll do the admin and we'll do all that sort of stuff for you. Is that a fair assumption on how you run things?
There's a Viking invading the kitchen, man.
I think Viking princesses go where they wish.
Yeah, sorry, that distracted me. The thing is, the forums, basically, as I said, the forums are subdivided so that the discussions can be had there about what they're going to do. Events, you know, whatever you want to do. It's not really something that needs to go by the. We don't really need to sign off on it unless it's completely stupid. We won't really intervene with it. Any PR is good PR, really, I suppose.
Okay. I'm intrigued by two things here then straight away. So any PR being good PR, I'll come back to that one in a moment. But consider this scenario. You are playing Elder Scrolls Online. You have a fantastic player called Bob. Bob is running around here being a big warrior tank, and he's doing great things for your Elder Scrolls chapter. Everyone's relying on him. He's brilliant. And WorldStar comes out. And Bob now wants to go and be main of your WildStar chapter, and your WildStar chapter decide they're going to be raiding 4 nights a week. What do? Because if you allow quote unquote that to happen, clearly it's Bob's choice, but it's going to have a negative effect on one chapter if you don't do some form of transition or planning or timing or whatever it might be. Whereas if you just freely allow him to wander across, whatever you do has a consequence. So how would you handle that, and more importantly, who would handle that?
Okay, yeah, I've kind of seen that happen before, but I want to stop people from wanting to change game or play 2 games if they want to. They're gonna have to come to the high command, and we'll help to find a replacement or some sort of solution in that respect. But yeah, if he wants to move, he wants to move. It's not that strict.
Fair enough. So you've also said that all publicity is good publicity. Now, I'm not quite sure I agree with that one from a personal perspective. Let's say we have a player whose thing is they like to, run around naked in-game. I hasten to add, scream. Is acting in a way that's trolling other players. They're a level 50. They're killing level 1s. They're shouting racist slurs. They're getting to the point they're so well known that everyone's talking about them. Oh, look, here comes Bob. Very active player, this Bob. You're getting a lot of publicity. That must be good, yes?
All right. Okay, so it's going to depend on the game. I remember when we played Darkfall 1, we had a guy whose sole responsibility was to troll the forums. Now, this is not something that we would say for any other game. It's just not something that's going to happen. But it's Darkfall, you know. I don't know if you guys know much about Darkfall. Did you guys play Darkfall? Do you know Darkfall?
I know it, but I wouldn't say I'm massively familiar with it.
All right, so basically,
fill us in.
Darkfall is an open world game. It's going to be full of a lot of trash talk. you can loot everything that the person had on them, basically, a bit like Ultima. So someone going onto the forums and counter trolling is perfectly acceptable in that respect. But we would never have that happen for any other games, and we have something set in that everyone needs to agree to. If they are new to the guild, they go through and read something called the Code of Conduct, which has evolved over the years, and it pretty much is self-explanatory. I mean, I won't lie to you, I never read it, but it simply means don't be an asshole. It's pretty it's pretty obvious stuff. But that being said, we have had people that clearly have been unable to understand how to get along with others. But so it happens, right?
And bearing that in mind, you were essentially talking about having someone who trolls forums, and you got officers who manage that sort of person. But in larger organizations, what you're going to find is you're going to find that obviously different chapters, different guilds, larger communities are going to need some sort of structure to allow you to manage these sort of situations. These sort of situations being how any particular chapter influences your particular community or brand name, and when you find that you get the reputation or reactions of one community impacting another, you're going to find that two different sections of those communities, they may not end up agreeing with each other, and it's something you've got to look at in terms of how you manage that. Now, I know that that Mizpah and Blank don't necessarily have currently large game communities, but Blank, you are currently looking to build the Viking Nation right now, and you're going to find that later on you might have Viking Nation playing more than one game. So how are you going to deal with it if at some point you're going to have some of the Viking Nation in WoW doing something that affects the whole brand, to call it that, in another game, because reputations stick, and what happens when they end up that they don't get in, they don't agree with each other? How do you handle that?
We all know here that I'm a big proponent for mature, respectful conflict resolution, and I also believe that putting two people into a room and seeing who comes out is sometimes healthy. Listen, if you're not hurting the brand overall, if you're not hurting the community overall, if you're just kind of having a fight with big brother or little sister, whatever, let those things kind of sort themselves out. It's a little different when your structure is a little bit more rigid. But for what I'm aiming to do, I really do plan on setting up infrastructure resources and letting people go and do as they wish. And as long as I'm not getting reports of these people are recruiting only members of the KKK in, then I don't have much of an issue with what they do. If they're causing interpersonal relations issues with each other, that's for them to sort out. And if I need to mediate, I will.
And so, just to come back on that, to just follow that question up, and I'll throw something out to Osun in a moment, since KDS are relatively big. So you are looking to run, because of the age of the community, you're quite happy to run right now a free, flexible system where at the end of the day you're in charge. Do you think later on that longer term, like you've said, you'll be bringing in those structures so that when you grow, that it becomes easier for you to manage long term? Does your size as well as your current age of your community, does that reflect how you're doing things at the moment?
Oh, of course. When you have a new project that's still getting its legs, what do? You build the foundation out. I'm not looking at the finishing touches on my $1 million mansion yet. I'm digging the roots out. I'm setting the foundation. I'm marking it with paint. And I, as I've said, often in a couple of these other, infrastructure is huge for me. Infrastructure and having staffing set up for growth is hugely important. and being able to adapt with the landscape. If you have the ability to put together, let's say, a hardcore team for Elder Scrolls, and somebody comes and proposes it, and they've got all they need are the tools, and they need my know-how, I will give them to you and let you go and thrive. At this time, it's more of a general community. So like I said, we'll paint the lines, and then as we need to fill in certain rooms, we'll fill in certain rooms, we'll give them structure, but I've already planned that now. So it's, it takes some time, but it's interesting.
Yeah, and you tend, and from my experience, I'm going to try not to take over here, but from my experience, when it gets longer term, we're just going to, if we can just shunt Mizpah's video out, we'll just, it's fine. As it stands, what you find is that communities, as they grow in age as well as size, it's always good to have a community team there. Whether how much they take on and how much control they take over things, that can vary. As Osun's shown, they have a slightly more lax structure than we do at Afterlife for how the roles are defined in terms of what exactly everyone does, while they have a more strict actual definition of everyone's rank. Whereas in Afterlife, if I've got a community team, and what we do is we go ahead and we have the community team deal with PR throughout the community. We have specific events we run. We have certain things that the community team own, and they have to do those things, and then the guild come up to them to deal with that. So it'll vary from time to time. I think possibly it might be worth picking on Mizpah after all for this, and seeing how he feels the structure for grievances should be. Hello, Josie.
Hey, it's Darth Vader's wife.
Has Blank transformed?
Blank has transformed, yes.
You guys apparently cannot hear me, so...
Blank has also got no sound.
We have no sound, Blank.
So what we're going to do is, while Pseudo has no sounds...
They can hear me.
2 words.
You cannot.
Film.
So, here it is. Hello, everybody. There is no sexy voice. I am just here. People are moved around until we get Blank back. Now they can continue.
Zombie apocalypse is coming. What?
We have this wonderful thing called chat. Well, while we're waiting for the internet telepathy to kick in. Nope, can't hear a thing from a Pseudo. Interesting, we can't. It seems that everyone apart from the hosts can hear Pseudo. I'm going to assume she's now just saying carry on, so carry on we're going to do. I'm being nodded at finally. Hooray! Screen, you were saying.
Alright. So we will continue at the chat's leisure, as they say we can continue. The chat in the end, they are all powerful. As it stands at the moment, we've established that you need to have some sort of structure in your community, and I think Pseudo is going to blow us up in a moment. You need to have some sort of structure in your community, whether that's going to be a case of having a very rigid structure, or having one more lax as you have a different number of people. Now, obviously, that's going to impact the number of officers you have, and that's something we can look at later, but it is something you need to be aware of. Sometimes too many managers can be a bad thing, as well as too little managers can be a bad thing. However, those managers, they need to manage people at the end of the day, and when you've got grievances, what do you do about it? I think we're going to pick on Mizpah, and I'm going to ask, do you in general find that when you're running a community that structures for grievances should be in place, or do you just deal with them ad hoc? Because these different sort of structures with different levels of managers and different levels of structure are going to allow you a bit more flexibility in terms of how you deal with grievances, whether you have set procedures or whether you just deal with it on your gut.
It falls down to several things on my part. So first of all, you've got to have communication. If you've got good communication between your, call them ranks, roles, whatever they might be, that makes things easier. If you've got a good sense of sanity and common sense between the people involved, then you get a little bit more people saying, what are we trying to achieve? Let's pull towards the same thing. A little bit less, well, subclause 3, paragraph 4, word 7 says this, therefore. But more importantly, you've actually just got to be saying, what are we trying to achieve? How are we going to get there? You've got to have the basis of a structure. You can't say to someone, well, actually, you were running around naked, griefing level 1s, giving us a bad name, therefore we don't want you here. Unless that person had some reason to expect that that would actually be not warranted behavior to represent the PR for the guild, the group, the community. You know, in our case, people know what they expect. We haven't written a rule to say, you may not run around naked and kill level 1s. Because we kind of expect people to use common sense. We've given them enough information to know that that's not good. So there must be a level of structure and the basics of setting an expectation.
And before... Sorry, you go on.
How strict that needs to be really depends on the level of communications between all the people concerned and how well you work together as a unit.
People! Okay, we have to stop a moment because Pseudo has a stick, a virtual stick. So bear with us a moment.
So if Osun, if you could just briefly kill your camera and turn it back on again, then we should all be back in our right boxes. There we go. Happy Pseudo once more.
I'm back. Apologize.
Fantastic. I'm just busy picking on Mizpah at the moment. So bearing that in mind, Mizpah, since you guys Enigma aren't a multi-gaming community, they are Enigma are more of a guild. Think of it like how do you deal with grievances if the people who would normally deal with the grievances have grievances, i.e. you have two officers who disagree. We might look at that from a gaming community standpoint as having two guilds that disagree or two guild leads that disagree. Do you need to do you need to have structures in place, or do you think that they need to have enough maturity that you can just pull them to one side and go, here, feel the back of my hand, sort it out, boy?
It really depends where, what, and who. And I'll throw this back at Osun in just a moment and see his take on it. But let's say two people who are class leads have a disagreement. I'd like to think they were big enough and ugly enough to sort it out amongst themselves. If they can't, then we'll go into a private room on TS and I'll bang their respective heads together. If they're unlucky, if they're luckier, someone who's not me will get there first and do it before I do. But let's say it's a little more serious than that. Let's say it's some senior officers having a major disagreement on policy. Well, we have a process. We know that we have an officers' meeting. We can go there, we can table it, we can discuss it, we can get to a group consensus. But we still have yet another trick up our sleeves, in that we have a council. And the council deliberately has an odd number of people in it. Odd people, yes, but an odd number of people as well. And that's one thing I picked up from Osun earlier. The High Command currently consists of 4 people. Now, one thing about ultimately our council of 3, myself and 2 others who were serving at the time, we will always get to a consensus because there's 3 of us. And therefore, we can always make a decision. I should add, an Enigma thing is, it's never been used, but I can turn around and veto. That ultimately goes with the GM position. I reserve the right to, I carry the big stick, but if I ever have to use it, something's gone drastically wrong before that point. It's never yet been used. But it is written down that it exists. But Osun, you have 4 people at your uppermost decision-making point of hierarchy. 2 of one rank, 2 of another. What happens if one pair of them are split on the left-hand side, one pair are split on the right-hand side, neither the twain shall meet? How do you get a consensus?
In-game dueling. Or we measure our appendages and see who comes out on top.
That could work. What happens if one wins the appendage war, the other one's better at dueling?
Thumb wars. real life. No, we really haven't had come to that yet, to be honest. I guess it really comes down to what we don't always join in on it. Not all of us are going to be particularly interested in one game or one thing, so we're not always going to step in and just for the sake of having our say. So
yeah,
that usually simplifies things.
Okay. So what I'm reading into all of this is, although you have a military structure in terms of ranks and squads and a hierarchy, your actual decision making is a little bit looser. You're very much down to people being responsible for themselves. You've got almost a mini community in each game, and therefore there's an element of people perhaps not treading on other people's business because it's just not always warranted. Would
yeah,
that
pretty
be a
much.
fair assumption?
Yeah, you're pretty much spot on there. I mean, we may still talk about it and give our take on it as an outsider, but that being said, if I decide to comment on something like Wildstar or whatever, which I haven't much interest in, bearing in mind I don't know much about the game, then my that is just advice from me. So I'm not really going to sit there and battle about it.
Fair enough. I'm going to pick up on a question from Karasu1415. First of all, Karasu, you have my condolences, and I have a ready supply of Nurofen in the top left drawer. However, that's in light of having run a guild of 2,000 players a while back. I personally find circa 80, 90 to be a very good number to actually be intimately involved with every person in the guild. Beyond that, Karasu is pointing out there should be a structure, there should be a hierarchy, there really should be a method of oversight. Now, I personally agree. I just wonder from your perspective, not having something defined as an ultimate decision-making tool that could ever bite you in the future. Do you just think there's no risk of that happening because it hasn't happened yet?
What the in high command fighting or?
Well, let's just say some decision that at a squad level there's a disagreement within a chapter that goes up to a higher level. Something that ripples upwards from the bottom towards the top. The actual thing doesn't really matter. And I can see how your structure will allow you to pass decisions upwards if it can't be resolved more amicably, easily. But I'm still just not seeing where that final point of decision-making is. Do you think it would be wise to define it before you run into that scenario?
Well, basically, if someone in high command does says that this is how it's going to be, we'll back them up. And if it's particularly controversial, we're going to talk about it for a while. But essentially, whatever decision is made by them, we'll back up. We're not going to publicly disagree with it or so.
Okay, fair enough. And that's good PR. I'm sure you'll jump in here, Blank, and say that being not united in public, that's never going to end well, no matter what it is.
Well, it's one of the infrastructure things I'm struggling with now. As I mentioned before, I do like to plan very much ahead. And right now, one of the things I'm looking at is, God bless, we don't have to worry about World of Warcraft. But Elder Scrolls and, Wildstar are in this nice little clumped area, and I have people that are like, I love your stream, I love, the Viking Nation, I want to play Elder Scrolls, can you not pick on me? And I'm like, well, I'm going to pick on you, that's what I do.
He said, she said, that he said, that she said.
But I look at it like this, I've had, whether it's me and a viewer, or it's me and somebody who's a part of my community, you can still come to the terms and sit down and have a respectful conversation and be okay and have it not be a distractor or hurt your community. So I had a guy that came in and was like, I love Elder Scrolls, and a bunch of people are all like, no, this is Wildstar, get out of here. I was like, no, tell me, what do you like? He liked the art direction. He really was a big part of the brand. The intellectual property he was totally sold on. And his friends, biggest key part of any MMO, if your friends play, you play. He's like, my friends are playing. I don't have anyone to play in Wildstar. And I was like, well, bro, if you want to play with me, just let me know. Good luck with Elder Scrolls. So it is, as long as it's not so much fighting, where there's that line where it's too much, where it's too public, where it's too. As long as it's not over that, you should be fine. A little bit is healthy. A little bit of poking at each other. Whether it's art direction or whatever is should be fine. So I did have one question that was sitting here about the structure for KDS. Do you ever have any pushback about the fact that you guys are a gaming community, yet there's a second part to this, that you guys use a military structure, you use it so that you're able to enforce the things that your rules, your code of conduct, and things like that. You do have very specific groupings that are for hardcore. My question is, have you ever had any pushback where people are like, this is kind of silly. I just like to play games. I'm not going to let some online lieutenant talk down to me because I'm a corporal on some online gaming community. Has that ever been a thing?
I mean, it's semi-role playing basically. It's not to be taken too seriously. We don't expect everyone to call us by their rank. And we're pretty lax now. We did have a part in a past where that was something that we wanted, but we have come across that. We got people who think it is ridiculous, and people who have no problems with it. So now basically it's a case of it's pretty chilled. You can call us by rank if you want. You can call us by call signs, whatever. It doesn't really matter anymore. So it's pretty relaxed. And that is the only way to deal with that many people, that diverse sort of community.
Okay, I was just wondering because I've seen this before, and I've seen it with very large organizations, a lot of multi-gaming communities that I'm aware of, like Warrior Nation. There's two other huge ones that have been around for 10, 15, 20 years. They use the structure, and it's because people understand it and see it, but I didn't know just how seriously you guys took it, because in some of the other organizations I've seen, they're very much like, I am responsible. I've earned my stuff here. You will not talk to me like that. I have earned my time here in this organization. I have done all of this work, and people really respect that. It sounds like you guys are just like, these are the ranks we have. You achieve them, through your own systems, and it's a little less hierarchical and more of a social thing, unless I'm wrong.
No, you're right. I mean, it kind of changed. I think we started thinking about the change when Star Wars failed, because there's no point in putting so much time to create apps on the forum to have all this stuff working out and having the structure in place if the game's going to last a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever. And that is basically why we went a lot more casual with it. A lot of us getting older, a lot of family people, a lot of kids, and it just doesn't work, man.
I hear you.
Speaking of which, where is she?
Yeah, she'll be
hiding,
as soon as we start wrapping up, she's going to be over here. She's just waiting. She's waiting over there.
Excellent. So it's probably about time to get into that wrap-up. So, Osun, we'll start with you. You guys have a lot of people. You have a structure. It's well-defined for you, and it's what works for you. It doesn't really matter, but it's there. How important is it overall for the existence of KDS that you have that structure and that you guys understand it?
Well, it's important, man. Nothing would get done, would it? I mean, we're 11 years old now, so there's a lot of people that we've had for quite a long time, and there's a lot of newer guys. The newer guys come in, they join the game, and you often see posts where people are saying, "Oh, thanks a lot for your time. Game's not working out for me," and we're like, "Stick around on the forums, man." And they do. They stay around. They play games. They come on TeamSpeak, and they might play a single-player game, but they're on TeamSpeak talking. We're playing all sorts of stuff. So it's really about the friends that you're making there. Talking online, playing silly little games together. That's probably the most important thing in that moment.
So you could actually argue, from your perspective, having a structure gives you a tool to create a community. Yeah,
absolutely. It's there so that everyone knows how it's going to work, who to come to. The structure we had before did work, but I don't foresee that being something that's going to go on, something we can rely on in the future. We've got ESO coming up. Everyone wants to play a game that's going to last a year or something. I mean, if you played Ultima, Dark Age of Camelot, EverQuest. Those are games that we stuck around in for a long time. It's not happened for a long time. So if that does, then we've got the experience of having a squad system. But for now, it's absolutely cool that we can just come onto TeamSpeak, sit on the forums, sending YouTube links of rabbits talking, whatever, and just get on with stuff.
Okay. Blank. Structure. Community. Any way around it, or has there just got to be one?
If you're planning to be one of the communities that allows everyone in, cares little about what they're known for, or your focus, because there are groups out there that invite people in to do nothing but cause chaos and to troll and to do whatever, open up the doors, floodgates. You don't need, all you need is, I'm the boss, a couple other bros to kind of play what they want to play, and it's a thing. I've actually worked really hard to keep them out of like the WildStar community. I'm like, no, just go away. But other than that, you need
Elder Scrolls.
Yeah. Oh, I'm like, go back to WoW. Just that's amazing, guys. Just go. It's fine. You absolutely need a structure. You need a foundation. You need to be able to grow. If there's one thing I can, to somebody who's like, I'm going to grow a community or a guild, put in place the ability to grow. Because if you are unable to adapt, whether you're growing, shrinking, like KDS just they had a cleaning of members, you need to be able to adapt. If they had, and that's why I picked the numbers where the numbers I picked were based off their old roster numbers, because that's the infrastructure they have. They can now grow up to like 150 people comfortably with the structure they have. So that's my thing. Absolutely need to have it.
Screen, you're now wearing a shirt. I'll be brave enough to throw the same question at you.
You can throw more than that at me.
I do that off camera.
Anyway, as it stands, any community needs a structure. Blank spoke about communities that mass invite people. Even they need structure. It just depends on how successful you want those communities to be. You can have a casual mass invite community with running, say, in one guild. I've seen casual mass invite guilds in Guild Wars that spanned 3-4 guild chapters, but they were part of the same community because they didn't have enough guild roster, and they had a structure to handle that. So every guild had a number of officers, and every guild had a guild lead, and those guild leads reported to a set of officers, and then those set of officers reported to an actual guild lead at the top of all of those, and they all had structure to manage those. And invariably, because of the size, you still got issues, but they managed those issues because that was what they planned to do. And planning is part of building a community.
Yep.
You need to plan, you need to find it, you need to build it the way you want to build it. What I said earlier in chat is that a good community needs to have structures in place, it needs to have procedures, and it needs to support from the top down. So, i.e., if you want to come in and you want to just delegate and then sit back and forget about it, you're not going to find that's the case. If you have good structure in place, then you can grow and you can appoint officers or class leads as you need be because you've planned already. But you're going to have to do the work at the end of the day. If someone comes up the chain and it comes to you, you have to be willing to pick something up, because if you're going to be in charge of that and building it, the buck is going to stop with you at the end of the day. So you need to think about these things before you move forward, and structure doesn't always come with you telling people things. It comes with them telling you things as well, and you need to be able to act on that.
Yeah, I can only agree. There has, for me, to be a structure. How rigid that structure is, how well defined it is, how many processes you have in it, really are a factor of what you want to achieve, how many people you have, what your targets are, what your mindset is in the game. The further you want to reach, the more people you have, probably the more controlled and planned your structure needs to be. And there's a scale. If your scale is, I'll invite 1,000 people and just say, I'm in charge, expect to spend the rest of your life in private conversations and not actually playing a game. I don't recommend it. Structures, we all need them. There's a range of them. We've seen a few here. The trick is, you've got to find the one that works for you, your aims, your guild, your community, your chapters, whatever it might be. And one final parting thought. Whatever the structure is you think you're going to have, over time, it's going to change because you're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to adapt. Either that, or you're going to die. One or the other. It's time to do Trailblazers. Osun, are there any guilds, any communities, any organizations you want to give a shout out to? And of course, that includes advertising your good selves.
KDSguild.org, yeah! Radiant Knights, Mystical Awakening, Afterlife, Herbalg, Folgog, I can never say their name, HB. Yeah, they're all pretty cool guilds, so if anyone's looking for a community, join us. Look at the other guys as well, I mean. Yeah, cheers.
There you go, KDS.org, I do believe, KDSguild.org. It is indeed down there in the chat, and it'll be on the YouTube links as well. Take a look if you want a chilled out bunch of guys with a military structure who manage not to take themselves maybe too seriously along the way. Okay, let's wrap things up a little bit, shall we? Before we go into anything else, we'll talk about next week. No, we'll do this bit first. We have, of course, our Healing Over Time event coming up soon. Does someone want to extrapolate on that a little?
Oh, that's all Screenager. That's all.
Oh
Screenager.
no, I've done the last 2 or 3 weeks. I am done carrying you on this. Go Black.
Oh. So
raise your chalice.
Raise, you do. We'll raise it on up here.
Those are dangerous words with him on stream.
HealingOverTime.org. Number 1, if you're watching the show, you need to go check it out. Number 2, if you're part of Viking Nation, you absolutely have to check it out. It's a 24-hour gaming marathon. From what I believe, they've got 10 plus organizations that are getting together. I actually, and I'm going to say because I did it, we're building out a Twitch page for them right now, so you're going to be able to watch